From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt, and this is Weather or Not. It's Monday, November 10th, and here's what's coming up on today's show. We'll talk about some morning clouds close to some bodies of water that we found with our live cams this morning and what's going on with that. This weekend's past snow on Saturday, southeastern KELOLAND. We'll show you some of the numbers, who received what, from Friday night, Saturday morning in the southeast. And warm temperatures are on their way. Maybe not right away. Today will be cooler, cold, as eastern, southeastern KELOLAND will have a day with below average temperatures. So a lot of us probably in the 30s, where we do have some of that snow on the ground in the east and in the southeast. And we'll see when we can get our next system to roll across the area to bring in our next chance for precipitation. As we take a look at Futurecast, it shows dry conditions. We'll have some high-level clouds try to move across the area. That's that Pacific air moving west to east across the upper plains, eventually warming us for tomorrow. And as that happens, I think we'll have slowly warming temperatures as we get into the overnight hours. So we'll probably fall to the upper 20s, maybe the lower 30s early tonight, and then warming as we get closer to daybreak for tomorrow. This is for eastern and southeastern KELOLAND. Eventually seeing that light southerly wind during the overnight hours in the east and in the southeast. As we take a look at Futurecast going right into Wednesday, remaining dry as dry conditions are expected to last through Friday. And then as we bring in slightly cooler air this weekend, we may have to entertain that chance maybe for a scattered shower or two. But here's our forecast today. 30s across eastern South Dakota. And then those numbers do warm as you work your way to the west. We'll go 33 Sioux Falls, 40 Mitchell, 45 Chamberlain, 50 in Pierre, 57 in Phillip, until hitting the lower 60s in western South Dakota. Rapid City's high at 62. The temperatures tonight, I think we'll hit these numbers in the 20s in eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa early tonight, and then slowly warm. We'll have southerly winds at 5 to 15 miles per hour. Well, coming up after the break, we are looking at our morning cloud cover with an example with a couple of our live cams that you can follow online at KELOLAND.com. And, of course, we'll be joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens. Stay with us. There's plenty to talk about in this latest edition of Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. And Brian, you pointed this out to me this morning, some morning cloud cover near bodies of water.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have going on?
Little meteorology there. So you got that warm, those bodies of water that are still relatively mild, and then that awfully cold air over top. And so we were noticing all these water vapor streaks coming off the water. Pretty interesting. And it's a little meteorology here. So we did take a little round-robin tour of a couple of these, and we wanted to share some of that with you. And this is from our Yankton camera, of course, at Lewis and Clark Marina. And let me hit the timeline button here, and you can see the progression of those clouds. But look at that. They're forming right off the water. And if you had this organized enough, Scott, with a little northwest wind, then you could get your lake effect snow, which...
You think so?
Do people know this? I don't know if this is common knowledge or not, but we can get lake effect snow in South Dakota if the wind direction, and again, this is looking back here at what was going on this morning at Yankton, too small of a feature really on Lewis and Clark, but I've seen Lake Oahe with the northwest wind going parallel down the lake. We've had lake effect snow from just a little south of Pierre all the way down to Fort Thompson.
And I know they had lake effect snow in Illinois, Chicago area, northwest Indiana. But, of course, you're talking about Lake Michigan. Huge
bigger body of water. Yeah.
But this is something that you and I talked about last week with this cold air. You said, hey, do you think they'll be talking about lake effect snows? And sure enough, they are this morning. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about some lake effect clouds with a little question mark after that.
Yeah.
And this is a look at both of our live cams from Madison from earlier this morning. And this is where you first started to find it. is with our Madison live cams.
Yes, we looked there first and then thought, oh, yeah, let's check Yankton.
Yep, there's
Found
Yankton
that.
again. That's just the still image. And you can check these live cams while you're online, too. And that's Chamberlain. Now, that's earlier this morning. Able to pick up on.
Look at that.
Isn't that something? Reduce the visibility, kind of, same effect as fog, more or less, is what we're looking at in the lower valley there. And I think I go over to the website here, and that's the latest look we have at being live. Again, this is earlier this morning, but that's Lake Madison, slowly trying to clear. The clouds getting a little bit higher now, higher in the sky. And that trend will continue to happen as we do go through the next couple of hours. We go through the day. We'll slowly warm this atmosphere. Those clouds will get a little bit higher. And that's the one thing I said to you is like, yeah, they're a little low. They're in KELOLAND this morning, looking at those clouds on the live cam. So that was pretty cool.
No ice on Lake Madison yet.
No, not yet.
But
that brings up.
There were icy spots on the little creeks around our place, though. I noticed.
Oh, did you notice that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Near Schindler. Yep. You look off Highway 11, you'll see a little ice in the little bit of water that comes through that ditch just south of Schindler.
And how much snow did you get?
Well, looking at the picnic table, of course, it was interesting because you get varying amounts depending on what surfaces you were registering. Because on the driveway, on the front side of the house, didn't really accumulate much at all. But on the cold picnic table, it was every bit of 4.
Okay.
And I'm sure that, people are talking about, how much snow we had. And generally 2 to 4 caught quite a bit of this around Sioux Falls. So the system got a little more revved up as it moved to the southeast. Interesting. I don't know. Are we going to have this conversation about the models and who did well?
Definitely. Okay. This is all part of the weekend snow conversation. Here's a look at some of the reports that have come in, too, with our snow amount. See if I can make this just a little bit bigger for you. Good average there in and around Sioux Falls, a little bit more than 3 inches. I'm about in that, same camp of getting a little more than 3 inches on the southeast side of town. But there's your 4.7 in Canton, Brian.
Yeah.
So able to pick up a little bit heavier there. And near Spirit Lake, just over 5 inches of snowfall, just to the west of Spirit Lake. And you can see the rest of these totals that came in from Friday night, Saturday morning. Brookings just shy of 2 inches. Huron close to 2.5. Mitchell at over 3 inches of snowfall. Yankton came in at about 3. And we had some snow into western South Dakota. Rapid City, downtown Rapid City, I think they had registered 1/10 of an inch of snow. So I'm done looking at that snow trend, that graphic I've been putting together. We got our measurable snows in Sioux Falls and Rapid City. And, and it seemed like, the odds were we had to wait. And then we had the clipper come through, which, you mentioned this too, that axis of heavy snow, you even took that model on Friday and kept moving it down to the south.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
And one thing about that, I would say, is that when we looked at the data on Friday, of course, we kind of had to digest the model runs and the data that was before us. And one thing that really was surprising or interesting is that the European model did not do very well compared to its counterparts this time. Mm-hmm. I was impressed. The American, the GFS, did a very good job. I even noticed that the AI version of the European model caught on
about that
faster. So that is an interesting observation. So some of the more reliable tools in the past, at least for this first one, now the season's not over. It's just like football. So, I know
the Bears could still make the playoffs.
Bears could still make the playoffs, and the European model could still come back and win the day. Let's see what happens mid-month here, and we'll kind of keep an eye on this. But clippers are always tricky. They do this so often because of the modeling, the way that the lack of data in Canada feeds into these. You'll see these subtle changes. Now, we saw initially that this thing was going to dive a little farther south from where it had it early in the week. Do you remember the first runs were actually St. Cloud and Minneapolis? And we're like, well, we think that could possibly turn south. And it did. It just kept going. And a lot of it had to do with the feeder of that cold air on Friday night. If you were out Friday evening, you know what I'm talking about. It was chilly. That northeast wind was
that too.
Yeah, that fed right into it. And the timing. was just perfect for Sioux Falls in the southeast because it started snowing heavily, right? 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning.
Right before daybreak. Hour or two right before daybreak.
Yeah.
And it was efficient, too. I mean,
Yes.
it was coming down at a pretty good clip.
Yep. It had a lot of great dynamics in it to rev it up as a clipper. Because clippers usually don't produce, I mean, for a clipper, we're early in the season. A lot of these clippers will come in, midwinter when the atmosphere is a lot colder, and then they don't have the holding capacity for snow as much. But this one, and it didn't hurt the fact that we had a second lobe of low pressure that came in.
I was about to say that, too. You mentioned that earlier this morning, too.
If it would have been one low pressure center, that would have been one thing, but we had 2 of them. And we talked about that on Friday. We mentioned there were 2 systems, and sure enough, they kind of co-linked together. So that's what you end up with, a nice little batch of preseason snow.
Yeah, where you have that darker blue, I would say that's, anywhere from 2 to 3, might get a couple of isolated spots. More than that, that's what's on the ground right now.
Do you have that satellite map? I know I brought that up too.
That I do not have on my. No,
see
I do
that
not have it
on the
mine.
Source 1 there. I think I have it up.
You have it up? There you go.
There. Yeah, this is actually the morning satellite picture from outer space. Isn't that something? You can actually see exactly where it is.
Yes, the white that's not moving, that's the snow. The white that is moving, that's our cloud cover.
Yeah, and you can see the city limits of Sioux Falls, and you can see all the little towns if you zoom in there.
Rivers, see where those are.
Yeah, there's the Little Sioux, there's the Big Sioux. Yep, Buffalo Ridge. The axis was just about Marshall, right there. Pretty solid. Southwest Minnesota counties did get quite a bit of snow there, and even up to Watertown, but you go east of there, and it just was nothing. And same thing around Sioux City. Sioux City's about the edge of it on the south side.
And this is keeping our temperatures down, too.
Sure is. Yeah, mid-20s yesterday for highs in Sioux Falls, and today we're going about 33, 34. So,
but it won't last. We have warmer weather to talk about, and we'll talk more about that after the break. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. Time to talk about some warmer air. I'll have to bring this one in. If I can, there it is.
I'm with it.
You're in that camp?
Yeah, that's
the
me.
The applause camp?
That's me. Yeah, I have to tell you.
You're not ready for this.
I can like winter. I do like the snow.
You can like winter.
Yes.
You choose not to.
But I sure enjoy it when it can go right back up to 50 or 60 and it's mid-November. And I still have a few things that I have not crossed off my to-do list outside.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are in that boat. Leaves. The leaves.
Right.
You mentioned this morning, too, and it's exactly what I was doing over the weekend, just watching that maple.
Yeah.
Drop its leaves on top of the snow.
Yeah, they needed just a little bit of something to kick them in gear a little bit. And the weight of that heavy, wet snow combined with just the cold air. Of course, now we've had such cold air this morning, that'll freeze dry about anything that's left. And, so maybe that'll make your leaf raking more efficient.
Hey, at least the bugs will be done. Right?
Bugs are done.
Bugs will be done.
Yeah, there's always a couple of stragglers here and there, but
I don't know how many there will be.
After having lows, in the teens this morning, I think we're pretty safe. And now, and hopefully enjoying the rest of the week, and being appreciative of the days that we have that are nice and mild.
And speaking of, we always show the map of these above average, when you compare the temperatures to average, below and above, and gets us thinking as to, okay, where are we when it comes to a climate average high temperature? And this morning I thought, okay, let's just pick a number, 40 degrees. Okay, when's our climate average at 40 degrees? Made this list, and Watertown, it happens November 15th. So as we go through this week, it will eventually fall to 40 for a climate average in Watertown. And then we have to wait until the 25th in Sioux Falls. Rapid City doesn't fall to 40 for a climate average until December 2nd.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how the Black Hills make that effect there, downwind, and how early Watertown reacts. That seems kind of chilly to me. 40 degrees for an average high. Seems like
Exactly.
we should be still in the 50s or 60s, but it
Because
catches up.
we're so used to the above average temperatures, which will return when we get into tomorrow. We have 50 going in our forecast, and we even had a little bit of a discussion saying, is that warm enough? It's like, well, let's just hold back a little bit because of the snow.
And the snow is a little tricky for tomorrow. I noticed, too, that the modeling actually handled the wind forecast a little lower over top of the snowpack. It was more insulated, so it wasn't as efficient as blending and mixing out the air. So we'll see. There's a little bit of a tug of war tomorrow on temperatures. We're still going to end up warmer, much warmer than today.
You'll notice a lot of melting. Yeah, that will happen. We'll get some melting today, as long as we have some sunshine.
Yes, so it'll happen. It's just a matter of how quickly that all unfolds tomorrow.
And then once it gets rid of that snowpack, we're off to the races again. Look at this. This is the first half of the weekend. That's well above average temperatures. We're getting back into those charcoal colors, maybe a little bit of white thrown in there. It does show that for central and eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, throughout Iowa, central northern Illinois. That's the first half of the weekend. And it slowly changes for the second half on Sunday. Tries to bring in some cooler air, but it's still keeping things above average. Keep in mind that our average high temperature by the time we do hit the 18th next week, probably low, middle 40s for many. We still have to wait until the 25th to hit 40 for our average high. So I would say, middle 40s will be common for average highs when we get into around the 18th. And it's still showing above average temperatures. So, 50s? Just throwing a number out there.
Yep.
Yeah,
I was looking, too. It's interesting to see the European model 7-day or 10-day extended model here, how the bar graph just goes up, 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 just like staircase, doesn't it? And we're gonna see if we can outperform that 45 tomorrow. That's the going high. We're in the low 50s.
Yeah.
So even with that said, Scott, it's interesting because even the European model is trying to forecast 61 on Friday. So it leads me to believe that maybe there's some potential on the upside. I like to mention things like that on this show.
So
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Can go up,
I
higher
think
than
so.
that 61. Let's remember that 61 Saturday on the Euro, and then we'll revisit this later in the week.
Yep.
Not tomorrow. Well, you can visit it. I won't be here tomorrow.
You won't be here tomorrow, but that's okay. We'll give you some time off. Then you'll come back on Wednesday.
Back on Wednesday. Let's remember that 61 on Saturday, according to the model. We'll see where we're at.
And overnight lows, too, are back in the 40s, according to that chart, too. But it does cool off at the end there. Isn't that interesting? There's some 30s in there. And then, some other things we can discuss at a later time.
There's not much of a change in that temperature, too, on the 22nd or the 23rd. What does that tell you?
Well,
there's something brewing?
There is. There actually is something brewing in there. But it's just a little bit of noise, nothing to be alarmed about. But we are seeing some more active low-pressure centers coming at us starting next week. So temperatures tend to kind of even out.
There we go. Have you seen the outline to this show? You must have seen it before you came downstairs.
Maybe for 2 seconds.
Okay, because your segues are fantastic. We'll talk about that next system coming up. You're watching Weather or Not. All right, we had our snow this past weekend. Not everybody. Western South Dakota had some snow. Southeastern KELOLAND had the majority of it. So when's that next system run through? We'll start with your graphics.
Okay. Well, let's begin with the recap of the week here. Obviously, it's going to be a milder week, and, we land on those 60s at the end of the week. This is just another data point that I'll pluck out of here. Look at that. It pops a 64 in Sioux Falls on Saturday. So somewhere close to 60.
Okay.
I mean, it seems very reasonable. We'll keep an eye on it. Now, look at that. You got some rain to our south this weekend. We put a little bit of rain in our forecast on Saturday, just in case that front comes through Saturday night with a little moisture with it. Then look at this. We get into early next week. We've got a low-pressure center across Montana up here into southern Canada. So that is a northern stream wave. And then there's one to the south that kind of digs into the Four Corners region, so right there. So that kind of puts us into some split flow here, which, you know, at the early onset of this, I wouldn't necessarily bark about this yet, but, you know, something like this, the northern wave, if that digs a little farther, that could be a little more of an issue. I think the AI version of the Euro is actually more bullish on that. And then the southern track, you know, kind of zips along here, so you can see Oklahoma and Kansas, and then look at the Gulf Coast. You got a lot of thunderstorms. So, you know, and even there, tries to piece out a little bit of snow by next Thursday. Would that be the 20th of November?
20th of November, a week out before Thanksgiving.
Yep, 1 week before Thanksgiving. And then, just to top it off, see that low coming into the desert southwest again. Now, that's way out there, so we're talking 10 days. And, you know, the wisdom of winter, when we talk about how much can we tell you that many days out, and the only thing I can tell you is that, yes, there is some evidence of something trying to push out, but we can't identify storm tracks.
Where's it going?
Yeah. Those are all things that
are... How much rain, how much snow we're going to get, you know, beyond week and a half, getting into 2 weeks.
Exactly. It's hard to pinpoint any of that. It's not wise to do so. But I do think it's interesting that it's showing a more active pattern across the western part of the country.
And a little cooler.
Yep.
Maybe still slightly above average, and we showed you those temperature trends not that long ago. But it is showing a little cooler, as it should be, second half of November.
So we have all the more reason to enjoy this week, because this week looks pretty solid.
Get your things done this week.
And then next week, well, a little bit more of a tug of war here. We'll put it that way.
Okay, let's look at the snowfall outlooks between the European and the American. Okay, it fills it in eastern KELOLAND around that time frame when you were talking about that trough digging across the southwest and bringing in that next low-pressure system into the central plains. It's pointing to November 22nd, 23rd. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and bring in the American model. Now, this one also brings it in, but the placement of it, it's maybe a little bit farther to the north, but it does show a lot of it in the eastern and northeastern South Dakota about the same time frame. You know, we're talking, 2 weeks out from now. We're close to 2 weeks out from now. So they're both agreeing with something trying to come in here around November 23rd. So that's impressive. We'll continue to follow.
It is interesting, isn't it? And so, yeah, if we can end up with a system like that. We've had our first introduction to some Clipper-type weather. So, let's throw out the possibility that something of more of a Colorado low, I don't want to say necessarily a big powerhouse storm, because, we'd have to continue to see this grow to get to that stage. But at least we've got some disturbances coming out of the Four Corners. Four Corners low, maybe we'll start with that and then see where we go from there.
Okay. And maybe on Wednesday, we'll continue to follow this. And then on Wednesday, we may have to revisit fog and our cycle or pattern that we're in, that 40 to 45 day in cycle.
I would love to recap that, because I think back to what you had said earlier about, the September version, the October version of those fronts, and how cold this ended up actually getting on Sunday, yesterday. Pretty amazing to see that cyclical pattern emerge, and even beating the model data that had hinted at colder weather. But nowhere was there a 24 for a high on Sunday sitting
How much time did you spend outside that day?
And very little. My kiddos, they were dressed up. They were making a snowman.
They were playing in the yard. I think I ran that trash outside and ran back inside.
That's why I have my 14-year-old do that.
Okay. Well,
so I don't want to do that. But, it is a taste of winter, but long gone, and enjoy the nice weather to come.
Enjoy the nice weather to come as temperatures do warm above average. That's it for us. Thank you for watching Weather or Not.